What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our college football week 9 preview and picks. As always, I have Ty joining me for our weekly video. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Get to 200 subscribers. We'll be doing that autograph item giveaway. Could be some sports cards, could be a jersey, could be a cleat, who knows, whatever. But we'll talk about last week's results. And, Ty, it was you coming out on top yet again, going 10-1 with Texas being your only loss. But forget about the Texas game. What game here probably, kind of turned your head a little bit in here?
I think you got to say LSU. I mean, we both picked them to win, but I don't think anyone really saw them just blowing the doors off Ole Miss, and I think that just says a lot about Ole Miss. I think they were a little overrated going into that game, so but I think LSU might be turning a corner.
I think for me, I got to go with the Clemson Syracuse game. And everyone, is still riding the Clemson's legit train. And, they've had two close scares. They've had to replace, their starting quarterback and wanted to get a win. And I think it's going to bite them sometime this year. It could be in the championship game, could be before. But that's definitely a team to monitor going forward. But we'll start with a game tonight, actually. Utah at Washington State, a game that'll be pretty solid, but I'm going with the Utes and Cameron Rising. If he can do anything like he did against USC, then there's no shot this Washington State team can compete.
Yeah, I agree. Just really steady quarterback play and really good defense for Utah. And I think that's all you need to get a road win here. Washington State, they've turned a corner, but not quite enough to get a win like this, I don't think.
And then moving over to the Saturday games, we got Oklahoma at Iowa State. And I think if you're looking at this one, beginning of the year, you're probably thinking at worst, both these teams are 5-2 at this point. But unfortunate things have happened to both these programs. But at this one, I am going to go with Iowa State in the upset at home. I just think this is a Campbell game where he, grinds one out, gets a win. And I think it will be the under as well. If Iowa State wins this game, they won't score more than 24. So with that being said, I got Iowa State in the under.
Yeah, I think the Iowa State defense will be the difference here. I've been waiting for Oklahoma to turn it around, but I just don't think that's going to happen. They're just not a very good football team this year. Unfortunate, but that's the truth, and I think Iowa State gets the home win.
And then a big game in the Big Ten and for the college football playoff rankings as well. We got Ohio State going on the road in Penn State, and this is probably their hardest game left on the road for the year. And, whiteout, Fox game day is going to be there. And, this is the Penn State redeem game. We saw them go on the road and get absolutely demolished to our Wolverines. And if you can hang in with the Buckeyes, I'm not saying win, but if you can hang in, make this a one-score game going into the fourth quarter, then you're going to get more respect than I think a lot of people are giving you right now at 6-1. And, if they even pull off the upset as well, obviously Penn State, Ohio State are going to be praying that, Michigan loses for the Big Ten bid. So they will have the chance, but I don't think that's going to happen this week. It's hard to go against the high-powered Buckeyes, and they won by 47 last week while not playing up to their standard of football. So if you're just looking at last week's results, then you easily got to go with Ohio State here.
Yeah, I'm going to say Penn State covers in this one, but I still think Ohio State wins by 7-10 in this game. I think Penn State's secondary is going to make Ohio State have to run the ball, which they don't really like to do. They do it well, but they don't like to be a run-first offense. So I think that's going to slow them down just a little bit. CJ Stroud, I think, will throw at least one interception, but Penn State, they're just not going to be able to keep up in the end. I think Ohio State they'll figure it out eventually that they're just going to need to run on this team like we saw with Michigan. So eventually you'll see a big day from Henderson or Williams, maybe both, and Ohio State will get the win.
In a game that probably is also flying under the record, and here, you got probably flipped these records too. And that's what I thought people would think probably going into this game. But you got Syracuse at 6-1 looking to rebound against a pretty solid Notre Dame team that's starting to piece things together after a rough start to the year. And I got to go with the orange here. Just what they showed to me at Clemson, they almost came out of there with a victory, and they just, were sluggish in the second half. If they can correct those things, I think Syracuse wins this probably by 2 possessions.
Yeah, I thought Notre Dame was really taking a step forward until that Stanford loss, which obviously that's just a terrible loss. That BYU win's not looking as great now as it did a couple weeks ago. So I don't really see Notre Dame really taking that next step this season, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go with Syracuse here at home. I think they cover that spread, and I think they just overwhelm Notre Dame with their defense.
A very underrated SEC matchup. I think this will be pivotal to Auburn's head coach and see if he'll be here next year. And I don't think he will because of the high expectations surrounding him coming into the year. And it's only his second year. Arkansas is going to go in there. They're going to go in, I think, demolish them. I mean, it could be the right word there. I do think it'll be at least by 10. And Arkansas gets out and possibly has a shot at the SEC if, a lot of things go their way.
Yeah, Arkansas will go in and win this. There's just something that's not right about that Auburn program. I don't know what it is, but ever since the offseason last year when rumors were starting to spread, it just hasn't been the same for them, and I think that'll continue. Arkansas has really underperformed their expectations, but I still think they're quite a ways above where Auburn is right now.
And moving over to the 3:30 games, we got Georgia, Florida, and this game could be a lot closer than that 22.5 spread. And I think it will be because Anthony Richardson will show up to play at least in the first half. We saw that Tennessee Florida game at the time. Both those teams were ranked, and Florida was on the road in Rocky Top, and it came down to the last play of the game, and they just couldn't, get the Hail Mary. So if you're thinking, oh, maybe Florida can repeat a performance like that, then you got to for sure take that Florida spread. I will be taking that spread. That's a fact. And I am going to go with Georgia to win this game, but I think it'll be by 10 or less.
Yeah, I agree. I think Florida should cover that. It almost feels like free money, which is never a good thing, but I really think they're going to cover that. They've just been really competitive with Georgia in past years, and I think this year is no exception. They still have a really explosive quarterback in Anthony Richardson. I know he's really inconsistent, but it's a big rivalry game. I think they'll show up here. Not quite enough to beat Georgia, but you also got to factor in that Georgia has Tennessee next week, so they might be looking ahead a little bit. So I think Florida does cover, but Georgia just has way too much talent on both sides of the ball.
Moving over to an ACC matchup, a very underrated ACC matchup, and our first disagreement here. I'm going with Wake Forest on the road. I just like Sam Hartman too much to not pick him and his Demon Deacons this week, but you got to give credit where credit's due, and those Louisville Cardinals have been flying way under the radar, no pun intended.
Yeah, I think Louisville's due for an upset here. I think they have really underperformed this season, but they've really started to turn it around, and they have a great coach and Scott Satterfield, really underrated coach, and they still have Malik Cunningham, a really explosive quarterback. So I think that offense is going to have a big day on a really porous Wake Forest defense. And I think Louisville gets the upset.
In a big Fox game for the Big 12 as well. Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Someone's title hopes will either stay alive or get crushed here. And I think it's going to be Kansas State. They did have a great start to the season, but they're slowly falling down, not just the Big 12 standings, but probably out of the rankings as well after this week. It's just because they finally are getting to the beast of the Big 12, and Oklahoma State with Spencer Sanders. He's looking to rebound from the loss and then the big win and keep his performance up and maybe possibly a long shot Heisman candidate as well. If this Oklahoma State team can, right the ship here and go to the Big 12 championship. But that's a long way down the road. But we're talking about this game. I like Oklahoma State on the road. You got, what was it, Dorian Thompson Robinson? Is he the quarterback? Or no, Martinez. Martinez. That's right. Yeah. You got Adrian Martinez, the quarterback. Spencer Sanders, well, all you need to know is Adrian Martinez is a Nebraska quarterback. And knowing that, that's all you need to know. If you're a Nebraska quarterback, it's not looking good. So I got to go with Oklahoma State.
Yeah, a lot of injury concerns too at quarterback. They said Adrian Martinez game time decision. And then Kansas State's backup quarterback, Will Howard, looked really good against TCU, but he got banged up. They said he's been practicing, but it's a banged up backup quarterback, so it's hard to really roll with Kansas State in this one. Oklahoma State's won on the road before, many times with Spencer Sanders. He's just a winner, and I think that continues here. They just know how to win big games on the road, so I think they do it again.
And then we got a good American matchup. Cincinnati, UCF, a game that will more than likely decide who's going to the championship in the American Conference. And I'm going to go with Central Florida here at home. I think that they have been, flying under the radar as well this year. Everyone's talking about Cincinnati because of what they did last year. And UCF is just not getting any credit. We're starting to put them in even the outside the top 25 receiving votes. Same with the AP poll, coaches poll as well. And I think this is the week they finally jump in with a big win at home against Cincinnati.
Yeah, UCF had a big trap game last week, obviously, playing East Carolina. And that's a loss that you could kind of maybe see coming. Obviously they were looking ahead to this game, but they got blown out by a subpar East Carolina team. So that's why I'm rolling with Cincinnati here. I'm surprised UCF is favored after that showing, but Luke Fickell just knows how to win. That's the bottom line. They went obviously 13-0 in the regular season last year. Now they're 6-1 with 6 wins in a row. And I think it just continues. Cincinnati just will continue to run that conference.
At 4, we got Missouri, South Carolina. And a good game, I think, for South Carolina to really keep them afloat in the SEC for now. And Spencer Rattler has been doing okay after he transferred. And the Gamecocks get to the 6 wins and become bowl eligible.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little surprised at this line as well. I think South Carolina should win this game probably by double digits. The way they've been playing, they just have a lot of momentum going for them right now. Spencer Rattler looks like he's really figuring himself out, and they're really well coached. So a lot to like with South Carolina, and I think they get the win.
Then at 7, a big SEC matchup, Tennessee, Kentucky, and I got to go with the Vols here at home. We saw what they did last week against in-state Tennessee Martin, and then the week before against Alabama. So the last 2 games, I think they're averaging 60 points, and Kentucky's defense is, I want to say, better than Alabama at this point. But I mean, if you can hang 52 on Alabama, then you can hang 52 on anyone. And then I think that over-under will for sure hit in this one. Malik or Hendon Hooker will just dominate that defense. And I think if Tennessee even, struggles a little bit, Will Levis is going to have to be playing his best game probably of his career, at Kentucky. So if they want to keep that one close, it's going to come on to Will Levis's performance. And I think in the second half, that Tennessee defense will figure out how to stop him, and Tennessee will win.
I think this game is going to be a matter of Kentucky just trying to keep up with Tennessee. We've seen even with Alabama, it's very difficult to do that with this very explosive offense. I would say this is the best offense in the country from what we've seen. I mean, I guess there's Ohio State, so maybe they're 1A or 1B, but it's tough to keep up with them no matter who you are, and that'll be no exception on Saturday for Kentucky.
And 7:30, we got our game, the first of 2 biggest rivalries for Michigan and our Wolverines this year. And, this is a game where, all right, Michigan should come in, blow them out, and it shouldn't be a game, but I don't like the 22.5 just because it's a rivalry game. Throw everything out the window. It doesn't matter what your record is, how good you've been, whatnot. And we saw last year, Michigan, oh, we're going to go into East Lansing, get that win, and, gave that one away. But I think that's also a big thing going into this game because they want that revenge game from last year where they knew they had that win and just fumbled that one away, literally. Wolverines with Corum and Edwards and McCarthy now officially the starter, Ben the starter. I think this is a game where he is just going to air it out against that weak secondary. Once they get up a score or two, don't be surprised if he is airing it out, throwing 40, 50-yard at least attempts to maybe start getting that connection going down the stretch before they play Ohio State.
Yeah, the big key for this one for Michigan is withstand the initial punch from Michigan State. Because we've seen pretty much every year in this matchup, Michigan State comes out giving you everything they possibly have. And if you can withstand that, then Michigan should easily win this game. So I think if Michigan goes into halftime with the lead, then you'll see them really pull away in the second half. Because there's no Kenneth Walker on the other side of the field. So I think the key is just building a lead early because if they're playing from behind and Michigan State starts to believe, you never know in this rivalry. So they just have to establish themselves earlier rather than late in the game.
And then at 7:30 for all the SEC fans out there, you got an upset brewing, according to me. I think Ole Miss, after last week's performance to LSU, really showed me that they were a fraud, probably the biggest fraud this year that we've seen. And I like Texas A&M here at home. They had their big upset last year at home against Alabama. It's almost around the same time here, and I got to go with the Aggies at home. I think they just get one every year. They somehow, some way upset a team, and I think it's going to be Ole Miss this year.
Yeah, Ole Miss is definitely a fraud. I think they're the second biggest fraud in the country, but unfortunately, they're playing the biggest fraud in Texas A&M, and they just have a lot of non-football issues going on right now. They just suspended 3 players. But it seems like there's issues going far beyond just those players with the NIL, and God knows what else. But it's just been a mess all year for Texas A&M. I wanted to pick them in this game, but with all that, I'm gonna roll with Ole Miss, and I think they'll just be able to run the ball really well. And if Texas A&M gets behind in this game, there's so much going on that I think they'll just fall out of it basically, and Ole Miss will get the win.
And then we got kind of some disappointment teams with the Big 12. Baylor sitting at 3-4, Texas Tech sitting at 3-4. And I didn't really expect Baylor to be 3-4 at this point. I would say probably at worst going into the year, 5-2. And almost same for Texas Tech, but here they are kind of looking to, hope to go to a bowl game at this point in your season. You only got 5 games left guaranteed, and you need to get into a bowl essentially to give yourself a shot at, a successful season. And I think it's going to be Texas Tech that pulls this one out, gets the 4-4, and kind of tries to right the ship here going down the stretch.
Yeah, it feels like every year Texas Tech is supposed to turn a corner and they're like this, 3-4. But I do think they'll get this win. Baylor's a weird program. It's like one year they'll win 12 games and the next year they're 3-9, and it just goes back and forth. You saw that under Matt Rule. Now it's been like that under Dave Aranda. I don't know how that happens, but it keeps happening. And I think it continues this year with their downward spiral and Texas Tech wins.
And then our last game on our docket here, we got Pitt going into North Carolina. And another game that you would think, all right, well, Pitt's probably 6-1, North Carolina's sitting around 500. But flip the script here, and that's what you got. North Carolina is a team that is an ACC title contender right now, leading their side of the division, the only undefeated. And they have 2 losses above everybody because they haven't lost in conference. But could this be the first conference loss? I think if they do get a conference loss, it'll be this one. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think North Carolina is on a crash course to play Clemson in the ACC championship game. And if they get this win here, that pretty much almost solidifies that.
Yeah, this is a good matchup here. Really good running back for Pittsburgh and Abanikanda, crazy last name. In North Carolina, obviously, they love to throw the ball with Drake May. So you get 2 really different styles. But North Carolina, their offense, they look like one of the best offenses in the country. And I know the defense struggles a lot, but they've been improving. And I think on their home field, they'll be able to get this win.
And that's going to be it for our video today. If you guys liked it, hit that like button, comment below what you guys think for your picks this week. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.